Rent-A-Girlfriend was a show that originally was super off of my radar. However, this was not the case for Crunchyroll, which was incredibly horny for this show. Post after picture after message, they would not shut up. And based on what they were sharing, I felt justified in my decision in not paying attention to the show. But clearly, I had not learned my lesson from past shows. See, I have a track record of writing off shows as, oh, this is clearly just trashy fan service, the show, and then after checking them out, being proven wrong. Rascal does not dream of a bunny girl senpai, despite its very bad show description talking about puberty syndrome and setting it up to be just a harem anime. It turned out to be a surprisingly emotionally engaging drama with supernatural manifestations of the struggles and anxieties of growing up. Shimoneta, a boring world where the concept of dirty jokes doesn't exist, with its pitch of a terrorist group that spreads lewd and lascivious material, turned out to honestly have a rather healthy and sex-positive message against excessive censorship. And interspecies reviewers seemed like it was just hashtag definitely not hentai, which... okay, yeah, no, that one was what I was expecting, but the characters were actually surprisingly charming and entertaining to follow nonetheless. So, I guess I shouldn't have been surprised when, after finally caving in to Crunchyroll's peer pressure, I discovered that Rent-A-Girlfriend was not the trash that I expected it to be. Rather, it's a refreshing entry to the rom-com genre that I wholeheartedly recommend people check out this season. So, elevator pitch for the show. Main character Kazuya got dumped by his girlfriend, Mami. Desperate and alone, he tried to fill that emptiness she left with a girl who acts as a girlfriend for money, Chizuru. Shenanigans ensue, and now they have to keep pretending in order to protect each other's secrets. Based purely on that description, it doesn't really sound like much that's new or interesting. The big thing that helps set this show apart from so many of the other rom-coms that I've seen is simply the fact that the characters are not high schoolers. They're college-aged, and as a result, we get much more frank and honest discussions about love life. It's not like other shows where characters are too petrified to even say the word sex. I understand that when you're dealing with high schoolers, you're going to be, well, want to be, a little more pulled back with how direct you are on certain subjects. But it's honestly excessive and leads to characters behaving in frustratingly and unrealistically reserved fashions that often fail to capture any true representation of life. Rent-A-Girlfriend does not have this same problem, as it tackles issues of lust, jealousy, peer pressure, and emotional abuse and manipulation in a much more direct manner. One of the biggest sources of tension for Kazuya through the show thus far has been the fact that he still has not gotten over his breakup with Mami. The thought of her with anyone else drives him insane, and still he gets anxious around her. And she knows this. So when she sees him with, as far as she knows, his new girlfriend, it turns into this brutal but low-profile series of attacks to lower his self-confidence, put doubts in Chizuru's mind about him, maintain any lust he may still feel towards her, and anything she can possibly do to put a wedge in the relationship. Not because she wants him, but because him moving on so soon pissed her off. And that is a different and frankly more believable conflict than I'm used to seeing in my rom-coms. But it also doesn't fall victim to having all characters just being oblivious meat puppets, just being strung along. Some realize what's going on and actively try to help their friends, who then actually internalize what they were saying. And all this starts when Kazuya rents a girlfriend, not just because he's lonely. He feels pressured. Pressure from his family to finally find someone, criticized for the fact that he's been struggling in his love life, falling down a well of despair because he feels mocked, ostracized, and judged because he doesn't have the, wait for it, confidence to make headway. That's another thing that I feel so many rom-coms miss out on. Not characters lacking confidence, no, but explaining where that comes from. He can't get someone because he has no faith in himself, but he has no faith in himself because of all the pressure he's under for not getting someone. Again, this is such a more realistic and relevant to young adult problem that's so nice to see get illustrated. And like I said, Another thing this show does that I really appreciate is how much more straightforward and blunt it is about topics revolving around sex. And I could reference Kazuya's friend's Josh Kim about how many times he yanked it last night. I could bring up the nightmares he has about what mommy might be doing now that they're broken up. But I feel like I have to bring up episode 5, as this is the episode where Kazuya realizes that he's having a harder time focusing on mommy, as now Chizuru has officially caught his romantic attention. And how does he come to this realization? Through a 1.5 minute long on-screen masturbation session that we follow along with, as he realizes that he can no longer get off to the idea of mommy, as Chizuru keeps popping up to interrupt it. Talk about a climax. If, like me, you were just writing off this show based on the premise, advertisements, or what you've heard through casual word of mouth, then I sincerely recommend you give it at least a couple episodes and a fair shake. As I touched on back at the start of the video, there are several great shows that I may have never seen if I just relied on my initial instinct, and there are probably several more great ones that I've missed out on and forgotten about. I'm not trying to suggest that you should try every show you ever see, but at the very least, it's more proof that if you haven't seen it, then you shouldn't judge it, because it could be so much different and better than you could have thought possible. Or, you know, maybe you were right, and now you can just feel validated. A huge thank you to Sam Hall and my other Patreon supporters. If you would like to support me, please check out my Patreon at the link in the description. I'm going to be moving into a new place in the coming weeks, but hopefully we'll still have a new video, potentially a new recipe, up by the end of the month. But if it's late, that's why. Until then, I'm CJ Pecor, the Angry Avocado, and I still don't have a sign-off.